And when you talk about a matrix, the matrix is going to be described in the following manner. It's an M by N matrix where it's rows by columns. Okay, now a lot of the stuff that you do that is in order tends to fall in alphabetical order, like X and Y ordered pair fall in alphabetical order, and there's some other ways that you can think of this, but rows and columns do not. You go across the row, right, and then down to the next, you go across the row, and then you go down to the next one. So when you're talking about the matrices, you're going to be given dimensions of a matrix. Okay, the dimensions of a matrix are in the form of rows by columns. Okay, so this is the dimension. So when you look at this first example right here, how many rows do you see? 2. So this is a 2 by, and how many columns do you see? 3. So this is a 2 by 3 matrix. Okay, so one of the things that you'll just be asked to do in a separate question, but you just need to know what they are, is you need to know what the dimensions refer to. So a 2 by 3 matrix is 2 rows, okay, and 3 columns. Right? If you are identifying an individual entry of a matrix, you'll use this form right here, okay, where it's A to some subscripted number, and the subscripted number is going to be 2 digits. And the first digit is the row that it falls in, the second digit is the column that it falls in. Okay, so if it asks you to identify what is the entry at A and then subscript 1, 2. And which of these values up here, 2, -9, -3, 8, 9, or 0, falls in this entry? First row, second column, so -9. Right? So one of the questions that you're going to be asked is to do this. Identify the dimensions of your matrix and then identify or locate an entry. So I want you to try the second example on your own using the same process. What are the dimensions of this matrix? Okay, so it's rows first. So how many rows do you see? 5 rows. And then how many columns are there? 6. So this is a 5 by 6 matrix. Okay, and if I asked you to identify what is the entry at this value, A54, it's row 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Column 1, 2, 3, 4. And so we see our entry is going to be -1 for that. Okay, any questions on just how they're set up? All right, the next question becomes, how do you enter them on a TI-89? Okay, the way that you're going to enter a matrix on the TI-89 is you're going to use the square bracket button. And the bracket button is here in blue above the comma and the divide by. Okay, so if you enter second comma, you see a square bracket. That starts and stops your matrix. Okay, so square bracket begins it. And then what you're going to do is, if any of you, have you guys ever even seen like an old-time typewriter? Yeah. So you guys kind of understand it goes across one row, and then it resets, clicks, and goes down to the next row. So that's kind of how it works with a matrix. Okay, so we go across the row. So as we separate each entry, okay, each entry in a cell or in a row is separated by a comma. So we're going to write 2, -9, -3. Okay, so as we enter this, we get 2, comma. The comma is right above the 9. Okay, -9, comma, -3. And now you have 2 choices in how you enter these. I'm going to show you the way I prefer, and then I'll go back and show you there's another way that you can do it. Okay, but what I prefer is to use to reset and go down to the next row is a semicolon. Okay, and the semicolon you can see is right above the 9. So if you then hit second 9, you get a semicolon. The semicolon is like the return on a typewriter. It goes down now to the next row, and then you type the next row. So 8, 9, 0, and then we close off our matrix. Okay, so if I do that, so semicolon jumps to the next row, 8, 9, 0. I'm going to close off my matrix with the bracket. And if I hit enter right here, in the display, it'll show you the matrix the way that it appeared here. So you can see 2, -9, -3, 8, 9, 0 looks exactly like what you were expecting it to look like. Okay, so that's the way that, to me, that's the easier, kind of more efficient way to enter these. The other way that you can enter them is each row you can surround in its own set of brackets. Okay? If you prefer not to use the semicolon, you can just put each row in its own set of brackets. So the other way that we could have entered this is, again, a bracket still opens and closes the matrix. So we have a bracket inside. Okay, so this is your first row, and this is your second row, and then we close off the whole matrix. Now, often what's going to happen is the calculator will display it in this form. So if you get something that where the calculator, like if I were to go up here and highlight this, what you can see is when I highlight it, it pulls it down in that form, right? So the brackets around the rows, but to me the semicolon just makes it easier and quicker to enter.